Goodness. You're tuned to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Stephanie Anthony, and it is a beautiful day in the capital city. As usual, I tell you, we have gone through another year. It is 2026. And most of the time, when a new year comes in, I have a lot of trouble trying to adjust and remember that we've gone up a date, and I have noticed that I am not stumbling and bumbling with 2026, although 2025 just seems to have flown by. My tongue seems very adjusted to saying 2026. So I thank you guys for joining us this morning. I'm feeling very, thankful, thankful for being able to see another year. And I just want to thank my chaplain of Louisiana Democracy Project, Alicia Garth, who has been doing the Let's Talk program for some years. I mean, years before COVID. And I really need to go back and get that or ask her about when she first started with the radio show. I believe she first started with the Big Red Heart campaign, which was on radio and on digital TV. And she graduated over to the weekly program. The Let's Talk program is produced by Louisiana Democracy Project, a nonprofit social justice organization dedicated to the people and the best interests of the community at large. The organization was established back in 1998, and I was one of the original founders, one of three. And I remain, although I remain as the founding director, our founding secretary treasurer back then was Daryl Millick Wiley. And for those of you who I just saw him actually at an event, a memorial for William Fontenot, who an environmental justice advocate whom we call Willie. Back to that in just a minute. Daryl Millick Wiley is the individual who coined the phrase Cancer Alley. Now, some people might think, oh, it was Pat Bryant. But no, Pat Bryant popularized the phrase by bringing it before the press all the time. And Pat had another situation. Back then, he was a founder of Gulf Coast Tennis Organization. And they were there. I think it was a Yellow Jacket, or was it a Yellow Jacket? It was some kind of stinging insect that they had as their mascot, and they always used to, before a meeting, start singing, "Satan, I'm going to tear your kingdom down." Now, this would have the elected officials and the and the petrochemical people, whoever the polluters were getting ready for a hearing. It would shake them to their very cores. And they would be whispered talking about, they out there calling us Satan. And it didn't matter back then. folks, we had a motto, practice that we never went into a meeting alone. They couldn't cut us out of the herd, so to speak, and get us in a meeting alone and then pretend that we had agreed to stuff that we had not. So we always went in groups, and sometimes, though, they would act like there wasn't enough space, whatever. And so the main bulk of the group might have to, be outside, and they would be out there singing, Satan, we gonna tear your kingdom down. But when somebody came to the mic, they was listening. Anyway, I digress. It's 2026, and I got a chance to see Daryl, who was then with Gulf Coast Tenants. And of course, I mentioned Pat Bryant, who was the spokesperson and director for the organization. But Daryl, they were both wonderful mentors, and Daryl used to take me out to these little bitty towns. Talk about one. Some folks sometimes say, "Oh, it's a one stoplight town." Some of these towns didn't have no stoplight. They didn't even have a 4-way stop sign. But that's how I came acquainted with him. And there was another gentleman as well from Louisiana. Sometimes we would go to different statewide meetings, or no, not statewide. That's not. We would go to regional meetings or national meetings, and they would say, "Okay, break off into states." And there we were, 2 of us from Baton Rouge, 1 from New Orleans. And one of the things that we kept saying was that there were a lot of things that, that there were organizations for, but there were not at that time any voting rights organizations here in Louisiana. So we endeavored to begin one, and that organization was Louisiana Democracy Project. Now, Louisiana Democracy Project, sometime late, was established back in 1998. And by 2007, I was very much alone at the helm. And my background was media. So one of the things that was established was Let's Talk. Thanks to Dr. Ernest Johnson, who was then not only the founder of WTQT radio station, but he served as state NAACP president at that time. And he did 2 things. Well, maybe previous to that, I can't remember. I've got to go back and write, first of all, I've got to write things down now, but I've got to go back and do research because he appointed me as the liaison. I think that happened first because that was in the first Shintek push, and he assigned me to be the NAACP Environmental Climate Justice Liaison. And back then it was just environmental justice. Now it's environmental, climate justice, sea level rise, because all of those are connected. Anyway, the Let's Talk program was established back then in 2007, which means that this year we will be making our 18th birthday. And I think we ought to kick our heels up a little bit we're 18, we've come of age, and we'd like to celebrate on February the 14th. Yes, that's Valentine's Day. Uh, Many years ago, we established the Big Red Heart program to abate gun violence. We commemorate those people who have lost their lives to gunfire, and we have a big red heart made out of wood, and our first big red heart actually was built, inspired by Big Jim Colbert, who had an internet TV station over on, I believe, Bryce Street, if I'm calling that right. And previous to that, we the Big Red Heart was made out of paper. And my partner in crime back then was Juanita Williams. And we joined together her Gonna Love You with my Big Red Heart. And he made physically a big red heart out of 2 pieces of plywood. It was giganto. It was enormous. And so we have set aside Valentine's Day for that commemoration, usually in partnership with Little Rising Sun Baptist Church. Little Rising Sun still has its church bells. And so on February the 14th, we ring the bell for each individual who has been killed in the Baton Rouge area by guns. So this year we'll do that same thing, but we will endeavor to have during the same time a annual meeting gathering in the first quarter on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. Mark it in your calendars to come and be with us. Not only will we talk about, this is for kind of serious people, but we'll have a nice fellowship with food and beverages. And you can come out and show your support and let us know what you think we should be working on during the 2026 cycle. And so we look forward to your input. You can give us a call, 225-343-1075, and we'll see about what you have to say about things. Well, I'm going to tell you, I want to thank not only Alicia, but my current staff for Let's Talk, which includes our sportscaster, Linwood Elbert, and our special society correspondent, Maida McDonald. We just thank you all so much for giving of your time and talents for the Let's Talk program. And of course, there are a lot of folks behind the scenes that do things that make the program possible. And I want to say to those churches that had New Year's Eve services, thank you, thank you, thank you. I got a chance to go to New Year's Eve service over at First Little Rock Baptist Church with their pastor, Reverend James Riley, who will be installed actually the last part of January as the Emmanuel Baptist Church Aid Association president. He's now president elect, and he has uh, an upcoming conference, and you'll be hearing more about that in coming programs. I want to thank all of the churches that had New Year's Eve celebrations. Now they call them Watch Night. But my grandmother used to call them Watch Meet. And let me say to you guys that don't know, I was born in the 50s, and my mom was born in the 30s. Which makes my grandmother born in the late 1900s. So she actually would talk about different holidays with me. I was the oldest grandchild, and I guess I kind of spent more time around her. And she filled my mind with pictures of what it was like when she was a girl. And one of the things she mentioned was Watch Me, which happened on New Year's Eve. They would go to church, and they would sing in and pray in the new year. And after the church service and the new year, they would have something to eat and then go home. And so they Watch Me was very popular even when I was a girl in the 50s, but they kind of fell out of favor. I guess I remember even when my children were young, Miracles by Faith used to have their New Year's Eve celebration. And it was wonderful. I would always buy a new dress because they dressed up. They had the hats. That's Miracles by Faith with Pastor Carla Gaines. They would have the hats, the blowers, and pray in the new year, and then have breakfast, and then everyone would depart. And that was a wonderful time. So I'm hoping that more and more Christians will stop acting like they scared to go outside. But they go outside all the other time, whenever they want, go where they want, until it comes to something for church, and they say, "Oh no, we can't have that." You notice that we used to have church on Christmas Day. I don't care what day of the week it fell on, but we used to have church on Christmas Day, and the Catholic brethren and sisterin would have their service on Christmas Eve. And all of a sudden I looked up, and it wasn't nobody having Christmas Day services anymore. Too inconvenient. The kids got to open up their gifts. Well, my kids didn't open up no gifts. We had 7 a.m. service every Sunday morning, every Christmas Day. And the only morning service that I can remember being any later was Thanksgiving Day service, which was not until 9, I believe, if memory serves, under Reverend Marshall Hall. Anyway, I look forward to next year, and wherever I go, I'm gonna bring some hats and blowers We don't have to have no fireworks now. I'm not for that, especially inside. But we could have bubbles because it's a wonderful thing to get to a new year. Everyone has not had that opportunity. And like I'm not, I don't have no problem with death if you're ready. If your work is done and you ready, then it's a home going. You going where you want to be, where we where if you get there, you don't want to come back to this place, but if you're not ready, if your work is undone, then you're not trying to speed the time up. I hear people be hollering about, Lord, come now, come now. And they know that half their family not saved. I don't know why they act like that. They half of them doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason over and over. Anyway, 2025 was an eventful time, and I think I've been highlighting some of the news of 2025, and one that was not good, which happened on New Year's Eve, was a 2-year-old girl was shot in the head. She is still in critical condition, and so we want to ask the praying party, all of you that have prayer lines or you participate in prayer lines, to please put this toddler on the prayer list. And not just her, because her situation is tragic, but all of the children that are in the children's hospitals, on the children's wards, who are suffering. The shooter is now in custody, and he's facing six counts of attempted murder for shooting in a car full of people. Now, as I understand it, the mother had her car stolen. She was then in another car with some other folks and thought she saw her car. She followed the car, and sure enough, it was her car. But the occupant jumped out with a gun and started shooting. And one of the stray bullets hit this child, and she is now in critical condition, and he's in big trouble because it's nobody really want to excuse anything like that. That you gonna be wrong and then put another wrong on top of that wrong. Now, and I'm just going by what the police reports have said. But you're gonna put everybody's life in danger because you want to do wrong. It would have been best to, okay, you caught, go on. You got yourself, you just go on and run if that's what you figure you ought to do. Or give yourself up, which would probably be an even better choice. You're tuned to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Stephanie Anthony, and we're talking about some of the things that went on in 2025. It's not often that LSU and Southern University endeavor to do the same thing, but both of them changed their head coaches. And one and both was kind of surprising. LSU, was going to buy out the head coach's contract, which was an enormous amount of money. It was enough to fund the whole department for most universities. But Ann Southern fired the coach before the Bayou Classic, which is something that we used to always say back in my day. I'm an alumni of Southern University. We would say all the time that you can lose all season, but as long as the coach win the Bayou Classic, he's safe. So by the old rules, the old coach would have been safe, but things change. And speaking of sports, LSU football standout Karen Lacey, was first arrested for causing a car crash that had a fatality. The person killed was Herman Hall. And later, after a lot of publicity, Lacey was said to have died by suicide in Texas. Well, they're still doing some investigating on this particular situation, and many have said that the sheriff's department the law enforcement did not act as they should. And so you'll be hearing more of that story in 2026. Of course, other bad news included the SU band member Caleb Wilson, who died of hazing while pledging for the Omega Psi Phi. He was a member of the Human Jukebox, and as I understand it, would have been graduating. So that was a sad situation. Folks have been indicted over that hazing incident. And as far as I know, the Omega Psi Phi has been banned. If I do not have that right, if you're Omega and you've got some more information, please contact me, or just you can text, or you can include your statement or your thoughts in the chat for those of you who follow on social media. Back in 2025, the citizens rejected the Thrive tax plan proposed by Mayor Sid Edwards. That was a shock to a lot of folks. Now, for us, that's more grassroots. We realized that it wasn't going to fly. We didn't like it. It seemed like a holdup. And it did not get support. Now, some of those same agencies which the mayor wanted to confiscate their money will be coming up for renewal of their taxable amounts, and you'll get a chance there. Everybody will get a chance to see how folks feel about the individual agencies and about their tax dollars being used the way they originally saw fit, and whether or not they will renew coming up in 2026. We had a historic blizzard. It was unprecedented snowfall in South Louisiana in 2025. They say that much snow had not fallen in Louisiana since 1895. So the kids were having a great time. They got some unexpected, playtime in an element that they were not accustomed to. And a lot of grown folks was out there with them, playing, throwing snowballs, making snow angels, wallowing around, enjoying it while they could. They were kind of in their second childhood. In the national news in 2025, there were unprecedented firestorms, the LA wildfires. They were burning up. California, that's LA. Disaster teams, some of the most expensive houses in the country were turned to rubble and ashes. And that lets you know that nature has no regard for status. Many lives were lost along the way, but not as many, as I understand it, as the 4th of July deadly floods of Texas. People were caught off guard with that flooding that was catastrophic, and we just have to thank God and thank the Red Cross, folks who go out in the midst of disaster to try to help their fellow beings. That's a rare breed, and they need more folks. If you have a young person that's strong and trying to figure out which way they should turn, what they should do, I would suggest the Red Cross, that they go to the local Red Cross. Of course, they can do research online and find out all the procedures, and then find out how they could lend their talents to that agency. I know that some agencies require a degree, but the Red Cross does not. So you can serve here in the United States when disaster hits, and you can prepare for disaster by volunteering if you wish, and you're not interested in a career in the Red Cross, which they do have. Then what you can do is volunteer to pack and stack. And I have volunteered in years past. This can be very rewarding, and even when you look at the amount of kits or whatever it is that they have that will be distributed in a time of disaster, whether they're meals or whatever they might be, it's very rewarding. Also in 2025, we had the first American Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. And it took 4 ballots before the white smoke was seen and a pope was chosen. On the other end of the spectrum, Sean Diddy Combs went to trial for his freak-offs activities, which victims said were terrible. The nation was talking about it. In the end, he ended up with a 4-year sentence, but he went in with charges of rape, racketeering, and all sorts. But that's how the trial ended up. Also in 2025, Sonja Massey, a Black woman, was killed in her kitchen by a white police officer. She had called for help from the police and ended up losing her life. And now that policeman is behind bars. Although he said that he feared for his life, she was the one hiding behind a pot in order to save her life. But of course, a bullet has much more velocity, and it is much more fatal than a pot of hot water, which he said he felt she was going to throw at him. There was the longest, in 2025, the longest government shutdown in history. 43 days, and we are still trying to recoup. Many people, of course, during the government shutdown lost their jobs, which have been eliminated. And so we'll be hearing more in 2026 about that, as well as stories that's going to carry on into 2026, the renaming of the Kennedy Center. That has been having repercussions not only during the holiday season, but as artists protest and say that they will not perform in this building that has added the president's name to it. There is one board member who says that she wanted to express that she did not agree with the name change, and her mic was muted. The press was told that the name change was unanimous with the new board, and she is suing to let everyone know that she was not with that. So we'll be hearing more about that, along with the demolition of the East Wing of the White House. There's a lot that's going to be going on in 2026. We encourage you to stay abreast and make sure that when you talk about stuff that you got an accurate picture of what is happening. Now, of course, that's not all the news. If you did not get your property taxes paid by midnight 2025, December 31st, you need to go on and do that because there are speculators out there. And you don't want the property that you or your parents or your grandparents have worked hard to acquire to be taken over by business concerns that just have a lot of money and don't care too much about, you just want to keep your own property. That's something that cannot be reproduced. Land is one part of our country that really goes up in value and can be passed on generationally. Now, I can remember when folks, oh my goodness, it was like where my grandparents lived, the farmland got passed on. The old people died. They did without holding on to that land. They wanted their grandchildren and their great grandchildren to have a place. And for a good while there, oh, them grandchildren wouldn't even come down and look at the property. They sold it sight unseen. And one young man whom I knew, and knew his grandfather and how his grandfather sacrificed to hold on to that land. He could have sold it himself and made a pretty penny. This boy sold the land, went bought him, yes, a Cadillac, cash money. And it's now got many mansions on it. You know, it's got McMansions on it. But he didn't have any regard. And I want to just say to the young people that stuff is so shaky. You know, they got all kind of stuff they're putting in the food. You know, we need to really try to see about redeveloping our skills for feeding ourselves and our neighbors. I can remember I would ask my grandfather all the time, why, Papa, you got to plant so much, especially when I was picking and shucking. And Papa would say, well, he said, I got to have some for you and your mama and your daddy, your aunts and your uncle. And I got to have some for the neighbors. He said, I got to have some for the raccoons and the possum and for the deer. They got to get their part. And that's how many acres it takes in order for everybody to get full. He was from the everybody get full thought process. And I can remember one year, oh my goodness. I say, Papa, he gave me a plot that could be, you know, I could plant. And we went to the feed store. I'm all proud. I say, I'm going to plant me some popcorn. I'm going to make popcorn. I bought that popcorn and Papa say, I got popcorn. I can't forget. I don't remember what else I got, but it wasn't much. But I did have a vision for popcorn. And Papa said, you better get some field corn. I was like, field corn? He said, yeah, cow corn. I said, cow corn. He said, white corn. I said, white corn? He said, you know that sweet corn you got? And I had my little sack of sweet corn. And that popcorn you got? He said, the raccoon's going to get to that before you even get a bite. And I didn't believe him. But I went on and I got some field corn, white corn, big, you know, it grows big and grows high. Shoot, we planted that, and at the time, my son was in elementary school, and Papa said he was maybe second grade. A third grade. My girl, no, he second grade, first or second grade. And my papa say, Stephanie, your roll's some crooked. He taught my son how to drive a tractor, and he said, put him on the tractor, put him out there. My son, plowed up. He said, look how your boys' rows are not way straighter than yours. Well, I was a little embarrassed, but I was figuring to myself, well, the corn don't know no difference. It's gonna come up whether it's crooked or not. Anyway, time passed, and Papa say, your corn just about ready, huh? I was like, yeah. I went out there, and it looked like a disaster had gone through there. All my popcorn, all my what he calls sweet corn, yellow corn. Well, that I really was planning for corn on the cob barbecue time. It was all tore up, every last stalk. And I guess it was maybe, I don't know, half an acre of the three different corns I had bought. And I was like, Papa, look. And he said, yeah. He said, see, when the mama raccoon get tired of them babies, she bring them on to a cornfield and let them suck on that corn milk rather than her milk. And I say, Papa, why they tore down every last stalk of my sweet corn and my popcorn? He said, because those are short. And it's easy for them to get to. And I was looking at it, I say, Papa, they took one bite out of half of these, because those varieties sometimes don't have but two, things of ears of corn. So I'm like, oh my goodness. But guess what stood? That field corn that he had convinced me to get, the white corn. And that's how I ended up with some corn in my freezer. Otherwise, I would have been trying to pick up behind the raccoons where they had tore my stuff up. Even the ones, it was terrible. Even the way I cringe at the sight of in my mind of it now. Even the little, they hadn't quite developed yet. Pods, ears of corn, they tore them down. So I say all of that to say, go on and figure out if there's somebody in your neighborhood, somebody in your family that knows how to grow food, and you got some land anywhere, let them come and show you, or let them plant and show you, keep it up at least for a season till you can find out what's what. Let me tell you, there are some parks that have a community garden, and in fact, we had a community garden right next door, but that lot was purchased next door to the church. That lot was purchased by somebody, and they came through and tore out a lot of our garden up. They didn't care what was, our bed. They didn't have any regard. But anyway, having decent, clean food that has not been poisoned before you even get to it is a very good thing. And for those of you out there who, you believe in buying fresh, not frozen, not in cans, that there are two things that you can use when you wash your vegetables. Of course, you can use baking soda in your water. You can use vinegar in water to wash your vegetables. And do that. because this stuff is being food is being sprayed with all kind of stuff that you don't know the effects of in the long run. And for those of you who are having trouble with your children being sick all the time, I'm going to suggest that you really go to a diet that's more with fresh food as best you can. You've been listening to Let's Talk, and oh my goodness, all good things must come to an end. We've been talking a little bit about some of the things that went on in 2025. And I want to remind you that we'll be celebrating our birthday on Valentine's Day. We are still collecting names of those folks who lost their lives to gunfire in 2025 in the greater Baton Rouge area. And I say in 2025, but that's not exactly true, because we do, if we get names for other years that we have not mentioned before, we will include those. So you can put in the name here in the chats on social media. You can mail in to Let's Talk at 3313 Government Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70806. And we really, really, really want to thank you for being a part of the Let's Talk family for all these years. We want to salute Capital Senior in 2025. The campus of Capital Senior High that we all know and love under the auspices of Principal Charles Keel was closed, and the population of Capital Senior High went to the middle school. And for all of you that walked to Capital Senior High, did that bogan walk every morning to school. I spoke to one lady. She was third generation Capital Senior High. And of course, you know, I'm second generation Capital Senior High. My mother was the first Miss Capital. Her name's Clardy Helen Ashton. She went on to become an English and social studies teacher at Capital Junior High. And finally, she became a guidance counselor at Capital Senior High before moving to Estruma High. And then there is where she retired. So a lot happened in 2025. You want to get in on that 2025 report conversation about some of the things that have gone on that you've noted? Feel free to do so on social media. God bless you and keep you. Make all your conversations useful and positive. Be blessed.
Recording